Hello and welcome to another edition of Only in Illinois, your weekly recap from Reboot Illinois. I'm Madeline Dubeck here with Matt Dietrich, and this week we want to tell you about the non-campaign campaign tour launched by our very own Governor Bruce Rauner. What are we talking about, Matt?
Well, every day I look forward to arriving in my inbox at 5:02 a.m. precisely, the governor's daily schedule of official events. This week, for the first couple of days, no official events. But then lo and behold, I turn on the old computer and take a look on the internet, and there's Governor Rauner. He's in Quincy, he's in the suburbs, he's all over the place.
Rockford, Bloomingdale,
Talking about all kinds
Marion.
of stuff relating mainly to his main agenda items, things like term limits and things like passing reforms instead of just passing a tax increase like the Democrats, according to Governor Rauner, want to do. And so he has no official events, and yet he's got all these events going on. My inbox also receives items from the Rauner campaign.
BruceRauner.com.
And it had full itineraries of all of these visits on this 10-city tour over these 2 days. So the campaign's paying for the travel.
And for the press releases that went
for
out.
the press releases that went out, and
the plane used to get to the different
the
locations.
subject matter that's discussed by the governor when he's at these things is definitely campaign material. But the governor says it's not a campaign. He has not launched his campaign yet. He says he hasn't even announced that he's running for re-election yet.
Didn't he pretty much say he was running for re-election quite a while ago?
Well, when you put $50 million into your campaign,
That's
I
a statement.
believe that you have stated that you're going to run for re-election. But his official line when he's asked about this, which of course he's asked about it nonstop, his official line is, I'm not campaigning now. I'm just out trying to communicate with the people about what's going on in Springfield and what needs to happen. So my theory on this, and of course I think most other people do see these as campaign events, but I think that the reason you're seeing this is with 2018 now less than a year away, we have 17 months until the actual election. We have not had a budget put in place yet as long as the governor has been in office. He doesn't have a whole lot in terms of accomplishments to run on. Now, he's done a lot of talking about things that he has done, like criminal justice reform and upgrading the state's technology, that sort of thing. But the real story in Illinois right now is the budget dysfunction. You know, we had just this week, you had Northeastern Illinois University had to close for 3 days because they haven't gotten their money because there's no budget.
Right.
We're piling up all this debt. And the governor really, if he's going to run again in 2018, he's really got to start rolling out his message now that the reason that we have all these problems is because the Democrats are blocking my reform agenda. And my concern is the economy and the long term. And, you know, as we know, he's got the money to reinforce that message and to really drum it into our heads for the next 17 months. And actually
started to see this week, him drumming that message out there.
And he's been really never did stop campaigning, because even in the summer of 2015, when the budget crisis was just starting, the budget was a couple of months overdue, and he or his supporters, I can't remember who exactly financed them, but they were paying for ads, anti-Mike Madigan ads at that time. Those were very campaign-like. So the campaigning really has never stopped with Rauner. And, you know, he's got this Boss Madigan website. There are so many things going on now. He's got the duct tape ad running already, 17 months out.
But he didn't pay for that one.
Right, that was...
he stars in it, but he didn't pay for it.
Right, well...
It's campaign material.
Yes.
Yes.
If it quacks like a campaign ad, it's a campaign ad. But I think as a media consumer and as a voter in Illinois, you have to be aware that the reason we're seeing so much of this is that I suspect that the big question in 2018, if there's no budget passed by then, and if we're still going down this same
Right.
bad path that we're going down now, the bottom line question for the incumbent governor is going to be, is Illinois better now than it was when you took office? And right now, Rauner is going to have an awfully hard time saying yes to that because none of the numbers indicate that. So what I see him trying to do is say, he wants to reinforce this agenda of his because he wants to remind people that this is what I had in mind. This is what they wouldn't let me do. And he wants voters to think about that and, give me 4 more years to do that. That's going to be the message in 2018 if there is still no budget a year from now, which is looking more and more likely.
It is. But I think he's also started this because he's responding to the fact that the Democrats have started to campaign, and we now have several prominent Democrats who have announced officially and are starting to campaign officially. The top tier, of course, being Chris Kennedy, who used to run the Merchandise Mart and is a developer and owns a not-for-profit company that helps feed starving children, and is a member of the son of Robert F. Kennedy, of course. And then we have J.B. Pritzker of the famous Pritzker Worldwide Development Company and owns Hyatt Hotels. That from that family, he was one of the founders of 1871, the Tech Hub in Chicago.
He's been a very active Democratic supporter as well.
Yes, for many years.
And he's more wealthy than Bruce Rauner.
He is. He's right up there as one of the wealthiest in Illinois. And then we have State Senator Dan Biss. We also have Chicago Alderman Amaya Pawar.
Yes.
And Biss and Pawar actually showed up and kind of campaigned at a protest held at NEIU this week when they were shut down for a couple of days. And everybody kind of weighed in response to the governor's campaigning this week. So I think he's also kind of responding to that and sort of flexing his financial muscle and showing them what he's able to do to get the message out.
I do think that Rauner has given the Democrats an awfully big target by stretching out this budget problem all of this time. On the Democratic side, there's one very interesting dynamic that I think we should touch on, and that is you have the Kennedy and Pritzker, you have the money candidates.
Right.
And their big advantage is, especially Pritzker, is that he could match Rauner dollar for dollar.
Easily.
And Kennedy to some extent. And actually Chris Kennedy put in over $250,000. So there are no campaign limits in the governor's race for 2018 anymore.
Ads like you've never seen before.
And then you have Biss and Pawar, who are sort of running as, hey, we are not the money candidates, and we need to get Illinois away from being so dominated by big money, where you have one big money candidate controlling all the Republicans, and now potentially another big money candidate controlling all the Democrats. So that's their message, is we need to get away from that. And in fact, I believe it was Biss is behind a bill in the General Assembly now that would do some matching for small donations to make it so that if you're giving $50 to the candidate, you feel like you're really doing something, rather than where you see these gargantuan numbers and you feel like, what's the use of me writing a $100 check when these candidates can give themselves $1 million at a time or more.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that plays out in the Democratic primary, because certainly that was a huge argument that Democrats across the map have used against Rauner, this kind of class warfare campaign theme. And so now that the Democrats have two of their own who qualify, it's going to be interesting to see how they all handle that.
And it's also going to be interesting to see if you, I don't know how I'm going to date my memory here, but the 2010 gubernatorial election is still very fresh in my mind, and that's the one where everyone thought the Republicans are going to walk away with this because it was in the wake of Blagojevich, the state was in really bad
Right.
shape, and then you had, I think, 7 Republicans fought and fought and fought and fought, and Bill Brady ended up being the candidate
Right.
and lost to Pat Quinn. And I think the consensus in hindsight was that had they elected someone who could carry the suburbs strongly, like Kirk Dillard, that the Republicans would have had the governor then. Will the Democrats do that same kind of infighting, or are they going to, will they coalesce toward the end and get it together? That'd
Yeah.
be it's going to be an interesting race. Unfortunately, it's going to be 17 months worth of it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So brace yourselves. Meanwhile, we have the non-campaign campaign,
And it'll
And-
continue, I'm sure.
and it'll go on for 17 more months, as Matt just noted. So that's it for this week's edition of Only in Illinois. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.